Easy task, but the members of the Great Peace March are confident they can manage it. Reporter Robert Walls is with the group in southern Utah. He now has a report on how those nuclear protesters keep going.
Morning comes early on the Peace March. By 4:30, the campsite is stirring for the new day.
Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right.
Setting up and moving an entire campsite every day isn't easy. To do it, Peace City, as it's called, is organized into 4 separate towns. Each town has 6 villages. Within the villages are neighborhoods. Elected officials from each town form a council to govern the city.
We have a very complex little community, and it's very interesting to watch the community develop out of nothing.
After a quick breakfast of squash cakes and some interesting-looking eggs, the march is ready to begin. The cost of walking across the United States is higher than you might expect. It takes about $3,200 per, and though that's a lot of money and there have been many delays, the Peace Marchers say they plan to keep on moving.
Sometimes when we don't walk, it's definitely harder to keep up morale. That really helps build our community so that all the things like dealing with politics or dealing with rules and what kind of rules and regulations we'll have are a lot easier to deal with when you have the community of walking every day.
The Peace Marchers look a lot alike, but they come from varied economic and political backgrounds. But they say having a mix and exchange of ideas is good.
We're really working for peace, and if nothing else, you know, this one community is learning how to live in peace.
Robert Walls, Eyewitness News, with the Great Peace March in St. George.
Yeah, Lynn says they may need their ponchos or umbrellas before they make it all the way through the state, huh?
I think the bus that was following them had all their rain gear in it.
And they're going to need it.
Utah, early this morning, reporter Robert Walls walked with the group for part of the day. He has a live report for us now, live from Star West 5, the site of the Great Peace March campsite near Santa Clara. Robert.
Bruce, it's been a hot day here in southern Utah with temperatures reaching into the 90s. But the Peace Marchers say they're never too hot to stop thinking about nuclear war. The group of 500 wants a ban on testing and disarmament of existing nuclear weapons. They hope this Peace March will bring attention to their cause.
Yeah, you know.
The Peace Marchers look almost like a throwback to the peace movement of the early 60s. Many wearing beards and long hair and waving peace signs. Even though the group may look a little radical by Utah standards, the peace activists say the issue they're trying to bring attention to is common to everyone.
I think there's not a family in Salt Lake that doesn't have a child who's somewhat silly and crazy in his own way. And they accept that in their own family. And I think what we'd like to do is extend the concept that we're also part of family. And it's a larger family than just the ones that you sit around the table with, but someone you sit around the planet with.
The Great Peace March doesn't have much money. Most of their support vehicles were donated. This one ran out of gas on the roadside. In fact, the original group of marchers who left Los Angeles on March 1st went bankrupt in the California desert, stranding the group for a month. Nearly half of the original marchers quit and went home. But now that they're back on their feet, the new Great Peace March boasts of being stronger than ever.
Is that a lot of people who basically came out here maybe with expectations that were unreasonable left the march. So what has stayed is the core. I mean, the best people who really want to make it all the way and who are going to do it thick or thin.
Right now, the Peace Marchers are camping for the evening. Their dinner is being provided by the Chivowitz Indians, who allowed them to camp here on their reservation. Tonight, the leaders of the group will decide if they want to march all the way.
The 3,200-mile trip to rally support for nuclear disarmament. For details, let's go live now to KUTV's Linda Bethune in St. George. Linda comes to us today via KUTV News Star. Linda?
Well, after crossing the Nevada desert, Peace Marchers were ready for a couple of days off, a little rest and relaxation and fundraising before they moved on. They're getting that here in St. George, and it's a fortunate circumstance. The owner of the Green Valley Resort met the group while they were traveling in Nevada on the road. The Green Valley Resort owner invited them to come here and camp just outside the posh resort, and they've opened up their pools, all of their facilities to the Peace Marchers. The Peace Marchers, as you can probably imagine, are taking full advantage of all of that. With me now is Tom Johnson. He's one of the Peace Marchers from Salt Lake City. What is it like to travel on the road like this, and what's it like to come to a place like this after that?
Well, one of the things that strikes me as most remarkable about traveling at like this is the speed at which you go. You tend to appreciate the environment more than you ever do when you drive through it. And as you pass through here, you see small changes, and the exhilaration of entering into Utah is just amazing.
It must be nice staying here at Green Valley. It's a little different than some of the campsites and roadside camping I know you sometimes have to put up with.
It's nice here. It's nice out on the road, too. We have had some beautiful spots where we've been able to be, and I enjoy them all.
Now, once again, you're going from where to where, and how long do you expect it will take you?
Well, the march started in Los Angeles, and it's hoping to end up in Washington, D.C. They started March 1st, and the expectations that they might arrive around November 15th in Washington, but we take it on a day-by-day basis.
Why are you doing it?
Well, I guess I want to have hope, and I think if there's one thing that the Peace March has as a product, the product is hope. Hope that there's a way to solve the global nuclear issue and create the context for disarmament. And the way we're doing this is going around talking to people, talking to you, talking to schools, talking to Rotary clubs, and trying to create a context in which it's possible to bring down nuclear weapons.
You have a lot of people come up and talk to you. Are people generally friendly, or do you run into some hostility?
I have yet to run into any hostility. I'm sure there are people who disagree with what we're trying to do, but everyone who approaches us is basically thankful for the fact that we're doing what we're doing, trying to generate peace and a hopeful future.
Okay, thank you. Tom Johnson from Salt Lake City. He's marching along with the Great Peace March, which is moving from California all the way to Washington, D.C., stopping here in St. George for a couple days of rest and relaxation along the way. This is Linda Bethune reporting live from Green Valley in St. George via KUTV News Star.
Linda, the Great Peace March has had quite a few problems since it began in March. What do you really sense is the feeling among the people there that are trying to push on?
I sense a feeling of great optimism among most of the people I talk to. The Peace March did have some rough points. At one point, the former organization ran out of money. People were basically left stranded in California. But they've organized, they've got more donations. They're moving day by day, essentially paying as they go. They seem to be raising enough money to keep going, and people seem pretty positive.
Linda, thank you very much. KUTV's Linda Bethune reporting today from St. George. Now let's go to the newsroom in Randall, Carlisle to talk about some other local news happenings today, and I guess we have a related story to the Peace March.
It's definitely connected, John. As the Great Peace March continues across the country, it appears that the U.S. nuclear testing program is continuing as well. An atomic blast was detonated at the Nevada test site this morning, packing the punch of 12 bombs similar to the one dropped in Hiroshima. A few protesters were in the area, but they were too far away to interfere or be injured. It was the third nuclear test conducted at the Nevada site in the last 3 months.
Camped out tonight. That cross-country trek to promote worldwide nuclear disarmament entered the state this morning. The marchers are expected to be in St. George tomorrow and then hold a rally there on Wednesday.
When the marchers get to St. George, they will undoubtedly focus on the underground nuclear testing going on in the nearby desert of Nevada. Another test is scheduled for tomorrow north of Las Vegas. It'll be the third in the last month. Some Soviet scientists were invited by President Reagan to witness the test, but they turned down the invitation.
Members of the group expressed fear about Utah's conservative makeup.
I know that they've said that we might have problems with rednecks or something in Utah, and I thought that was kind of funny because any cowboys or rednecks that I've known are pretty friendly.
Ginny Dean has to make 600 sandwiches tonight for tomorrow's lunch. Before she became a short-order cook and a peace marcher, Ginny put in 6 years with the Utah Symphony. And though it was hard to quit, she feels she's learning a lot from her experience.
I think patience.
In Nevada, it was the third underground nuclear test there in the past month. The bomb detonated 2,000 feet below the desert floor with a force 12 times greater than the first atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The Soviet Union once again immediately condemned the test as a threat to an East-West arms agreement.
And while that was going on, the cross-country march to promote nuclear disarmament moved into St. George today. KUTV's Linda Bethune reports.
It's coming in. Just sit right behind the people that are in the third circle.
Like they do every evening, the peace marchers gathered to share dinner in the desert. But Green Valley is hardly a typical roadside camp for the cross-country travelers. After crossing Nevada, the peace marchers were ready for a little rest and relaxation. For people accustomed to the dust and heat of desert camping, Green Valley has been luxury beyond belief.
Check this out! Oh my God!
The Green Valley Resort has essentially opened its doors to the 500 peace marchers.
You know, I just have to respect anybody that would, in this age of terrorism, peacefully go about trying to bring peace in the world.
The dozens of colorful tents present a strange sight sitting next to expensive condominiums. The group has already become something of a tourist attraction, with resort guests and local residents dropping by to find out what peace marchers do when they're not marching.
I think it's absolutely fantastic.
I mean, it's
when they
fantastic.
say a peace march, I've never seen so many vehicles.
People say they've brought only the essentials, but that includes a lot when one is spending 9 months on the road. The atmosphere is festive, but people say the cause is serious.
I thought this looks like a real positive way to do something. It might not really accomplish anything, I don't know, but at least I felt like I've tried.
When the 2 days of fun in the sun are over, the peace marchers say they'll be ready to move on. Linda Bethune, KUTV News at the Green Valley Resort in St. George, Utah.
You would have liked that assignment. You could have played golf all day, right?
That's true. That's a beautiful area.
It's time. The activist army wound its way along old U.S. Highway 91 again today, making another 12 miles toward its goal of reaching Washington, D.C. by November 15th. The marchers lost time when pro-peace went bankrupt, stranding them in the California desert for a month. Some marchers now want to carpool across Utah to make up the time and then to concentrate on more populated areas to spread the purpose of their march.
To call attention to the serious problems in the world as a result of the existence of 50,000 warheads all over the world that can blow this planet up if we're not careful.
Tonight, the peace marchers are camping out near Green Valley outside of St. George. They plan to take a day off tomorrow before continuing their trek.
The great peace marchers are back on the road this morning. The anti-nuclear group followed Interstate 15 through St. George yesterday, reaching a campsite near Leeds where they celebrated Passover last night. The marchers want to reach the intersection with I-70 by the end of next week. From there, some will drive up to Salt Lake City and Ogden. After the big city stint, the marchers will rejoin their group in Green River and head on into Colorado. Their destination is Washington, D.C.